Game 1 of the fantasy baseball season, and here's a few pitchers I would look to drop this week. The first guy's Tanner Houck of the Boston Red Sox. Houck here, he's one of their top prospects in their system, but it just hasn't panned out in this season here. Is Houck, 44 and 2/3, 0-3 record, 1 save, 42 hits, 18 runs, 3 homers, 12 walks, 55 strikeouts, a 3.63 ERA, and a 1.21 whip on the season here for Houck. But the last couple weeks, 14 innings, no record, 8 runs, a homer, 5 walks, 11 Ks, a 5.14 ERA, and a 1.36 whip. So right here, Houck, he's been up and down between the majors and the minors most of the season. And right here, he's just not consistent enough or pitching well enough to be owned in fantasy leagues. But right now, he's owned in 30% of fantasy leagues. And he's a pitcher I would drop. I just don't think this is the season where he's going to turn things around and be fantasy relevant. So the last few games here for Houck, August 17th at the Yankees, 4 innings, no decision, 5 hits, 2 runs, 2 Ks, a 4.50 ERA, a 1.25 whip. August 24th versus the Twins, 4 and 2/3, no decision, 8 hits, 3 runs, a walk, 6 Ks, a 5.79 ERA, and a 1.93 whip. And August 29th at the Indians, 5 1/3, no decision, 1 hit, 3 runs, a homer, 4 walks, 3 Ks, a 5.06 ERA, and an 0.94 whip. So right there, he's not getting quality starts. He's not going deep into games. And like I mentioned, he's been in between the majors and the minors most of the season. And right now, in my opinion, there's no reason to have him on your fantasy team. So he's worth a drop this week. The next pitcher is James Carnsack of the Cleveland Indians. So Carnsack, he was one of the better relievers coming into fantasy baseball season, according to the rankings here as a closer for the Indians. But this season, he really hasn't been that impressive in my opinion. 54 1/3, 7-4 record, 11 saves, 35 hits, 25 runs, 9 homers, 32 walks, 77 strikeouts, a 4.14 ERA, and a 1.23 whip on the season. And the last couple weeks here, Carnsack, he's just been getting hit hard, 3 and 2/3. 0-1 record, 5 hits, 3 runs, a homer, 3 walks, 3 Ks, a 7.36 ERA, and a 2.18 whip. So right here, the Indians, they had enough of Carnsack, and they sent him down to the minor leagues here after he was one of the top 10 closers drafted in fantasy leagues this season. But obviously, he didn't live up to the hype, and coming into the season, he was one of the closers I was trying to avoid, especially with his ranking, and especially him being on an Indian team that wasn't supposed to compete this season, which they haven't. And right now, Carnsack's been dropped in 11% of fantasy leagues, but he's still owned in 59%, and he's definitely a pitcher I would drop this week. The next is Matt Barnes of the Boston Red Sox I would drop. So Matt Barnes, it's been a struggle for him over the last 3-4 weeks of the season here, blowing saves, getting hit hard, and really not being fantasy relevant, with Adam Ottavino taking over some closer role duties over the last few outings. So on the season for Barnes, 49 and 2/3, 6-5 record, 24 saves, 36 hits, 21 runs, 7 homers, 17 walks, 78 strikeouts, a 3.81 ERA, and a 1.07 whip. But the last couple weeks for him, 2 and 2/3, 6 hits, 3 runs, a homer, 3 walks, 6 Ks, a 10.13 ERA, and a 3.38 whip in that time. And in the last month, we'll go deeper into the stats. 1 and 3 record, 1 save, 12 hits, 10 runs, 3 homers, 6 walks, 12 Ks, a 13.50 ERA, and a 2.70 whip. So right here, he's not getting the job done, is Matt Barnes. He's not the closer anymore for the Red Sox, it seems like, without Ottavino the last 2 outings getting the saves. And right now, he's not worth the roster spot, in my opinion. And right now, he's still owned in 81% of fantasy leagues. But he's definitely a pitcher I would drop this week. The next pitcher is Toussaint of the Atlanta Braves. So Toussaint, we know he's had some decent games and some bad games this season with the Braves, especially after coming off the injured list about a month ago. So on the season for Toussaint, 40 innings, 3 and 2 record, 31 hits, 16 runs, 7 homers, 15 walks, 40 Ks, a 3.60 ERA, a 1.15 whip, and 3 quality starts, which are pretty good numbers in the last couple weeks for him. 12 and 2/3, 2-0 record, 8 hits, 3 runs, 2 homers, 6 walks, 12 Ks, a 2.13 ERA and a 1.11 whip with a quality start. So right now, Ian Anderson, he came off the injured list yesterday for this Atlanta Brave team and obviously started that game. And the thing to me is that Toussaint came in as a reliever in that game. So right now, I think that's the move the Braves are making, moving Toussaint to the bullpen with Anderson and Yona coming back over the last week here for this starting rotation. So Toussaint, obviously, if he's in the bullpen and not closing, he's going to have no fantasy value. And it's very unfortunate. He was pitching pretty decent, in my opinion, here for the Braves and for fantasy owners. But right now, it's a telling sign he's out of the rotation and into the bullpen, and it's a no-brainer to drop him this week. So the last few outings for him, August 16th at Miami, 6 1/3, got the win, 3 hits, 2 runs, 2 homers, 2 walks, 7 Ks at 2.84 ERA, 0.79 whip and a quality start. August 22nd at Baltimore, 5 1/3, got the win, 5 hits, a run, 3 walks, 5 Ks, a 1.69 ERA, 1.50 whip. And then, like I mentioned yesterday, where he was most likely supposedly going to be scheduled to start, instead he came in relief for Ian Anderson, and he went 1 inning, clean inning for Toussaint in that one. So right here, he's out of the rotation, it looks like, and he's a definite drop this week. And fantasy owners so far have dropped him in 5% of fantasy leagues. But if someone does go down and get injured for this Brave team, he'll be back in the rotation. But right now, he's a pitcher I would drop, in the 5th and final pitcher I look to drop this week. Miles Mikolas of the St. Louis Cardinals. So Mikolas, he came off the injured list after pretty much missing the whole season as well. On the season, 13 1/3, 0-1 record, 13 hits, 4 runs, a homer, 4 walks, 11 strikeouts, a 2.70 ERA, a 1.28 whip in the last couple weeks since the return, 9 1/3, 0-1 record, 10 hits, 3 runs, a homer, 3 walks, 8 Ks, a 2.89 ERA, 1.39 whip here. So Mikolas, he's back from injury, and he's not going to go deep into games, in my opinion. And right now, fantasy owners have dropped him in 4% of fantasy leagues as Mikolas. The first 2 outings since he returned, August 20th versus the Pirates, 5 innings, got the loss, 2 hits, 2 walks, 5 Ks, 0.80 whip, no runs given up. And then August 26th in his second matchup at Pittsburgh, 4 1/3, 8 hits, no decision, 3 runs, a homer, a walk, 3 Ks, a 6.23 ERA, and a 2.08 whip. So right here, I don't think Mikolas is going to have much fantasy value. He's not going to go deep into games. He's not really stretched out. And who knows if he's even 100%. So right now, his next outing is August 31st here today at the Cincinnati Reds. But I don't think much is going to happen from him. And right now, he's a pitcher I would drop. So that's a few pitches I would look to drop here in Week 21 of the fantasy baseball season.